Ah, the 1980s, a time when action movies were king and muscles and one-liners ruled the day. The action movie was a staple of the decade, a time when testosterone-fueled men ran around blowing things up and flexing their muscles while women stood around looking pretty, sometimes showing off their tits and being rescued. The plots were often nonsensical, the dialogue was cheesy, and the explosions were plentiful. It was a simpler time when the only thing that mattered was whether or not the hero could take down the bad guy in a hail of bullets and one-liners. Let's take a look at the definitive action heroes of what many believe to be the greatest decade of all time. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold is the undisputed king of 1980s action movies. From The Terminator to Predator to Commando, this Austrian muscleman dominated the silver screen with his bulging biceps and cheesy catchphrases. "I'll be back, stick around, get to the chopper!" Arnie had them all. And let's not forget his brief foray into comedy with Twins and Kindergarten Cop. He truly was the governor of our hearts. Sylvester Stallone. Sly was no slouch when it came to 1980s action movies. He starred as John Rambo in First Blood and its sequels, and as Rocky Balboa in the Rocky series. But it was his turn as John Rambo that cemented his status as an action movie icon. "Don't push it or I'll give you a war you won't believe," he growled in Rambo. First Blood Part 2. Bruce Willis. When he wasn't playing wisecracking Detective John McClane in the Die Hard series, Bruce Willis was playing wisecracking Detective John McClane in other movies like The Last Boy Scout and The Fifth Element, but it was his performance as McClane that earned him a spot on this list. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker has become synonymous with both Willis and the action movie genre. Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford may be better known for his roles in Star Wars and Indiana Jones, but he also kicked some serious butt in the 1980s. He played Rick Deckard in Blade Runner and Jack Ryan in Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger. And who can forget the iconic scene in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom where he grabs a sword and just shoots the guy. Jean-Claude Van Damme. The muscles from Brussels may not have had the staying power of some of the other action movie heroes on this list, but he made his mark in the 1980s with movies like Bloodsport, Kickboxer, and Cyborg. And who can forget his signature move, the splits? Van Damme may not have had the most memorable catchphrases, but he definitely left an impression on audiences. Chuck Norris. With a beard that could take down a small country and the skills to match, Chuck Norris was a force to be reckoned with in the 1980s. He starred in classics like Missing in Action, The Delta Force, and Invasion USA. And who can forget his legendary roundhouse kick? When Chuck Norris does a push-up, he isn't lifting himself up, he's pushing the earth down. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson may have had a tumultuous career since the 1980s, but back then he was a bona fide action star. He played Max Rokitansky in the Mad Max series and Martin Riggs in the Lethal Weapon series. And let's not forget his role in Braveheart, where he played a Scotsman who basically just wanted to fight the English. Dolph Lundgren. This Swedish hunk of muscle made a name for himself in the 1980s with movies like Rocky IV, Masters of the Universe, and Red Scorpion, and who can forget his role as Ivan Drago, the Russian boxer who killed Apollo Creed. "I must break you," he famously said to Rocky Balboa. And break him he did, as Rocky stated in Creed II, "That guy broke things in me that ain't never been fixed." Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell may have started his career as a Disney child star, but he sure grew up to be one heck of an action hero. He played Snake Plissken in Escape from New York and Escape from L.A., and Jack Burton in Big Trouble in Little China. And let's not forget his turn as Wyatt Earp in Tombstone. Steven Seagal. The man, the myth, the ponytail. With his Aikido prowess and undeniable command of unintentional comedy, Steven Seagal was a unique presence in the 1980s action movie scene. Although his first movie, Above the Law, was technically the only one released in the 80s, it set the stage for greatness to follow, like Out for Justice and Under Siege. And who can forget his signature move, snapping an opponent's arm and/or leg and/or neck like a twig? And last but not least, honorable mention goes to Michael Dudikoff. If you haven't heard of Michael Dudikoff, you're not alone. But if you're a fan of 1980s action movies, you'll know him as Joe Armstrong in American Ninja and its sequels. Dudikoff was the ultimate B-movie action hero.